I always looked at sales as this way. I'm not the one that has the problems. The prospect does. So why am I qualifying to them? Why am I trying to beg them to buy when I'm the one that doesn't have the problems? Now I have the solution to solve their problems. So I'm going to learn techniques to get them to qualify to me. I'm going to learn how to get them to do all the work. I'm going to learn how to get them to sell themselves. I'm going to learn how to get them to overcome their own concerns. And I'm going to learn how to get them to pull me in rather than me pushing, pressuring, chasing, following up. Because once again, I'm not the one that has the problems. They do.
What's up, everybody? Sam Taggart with the D2D Podcast. It's been a minute. You've been listening to a lot of these Golden Door winners, which have been awesome guests. Big shout out to Roz for interviewing a lot of them. And I'm in to give you guys a treat. You know, I like coming back as the host on the show. It's been a minute. And when I get a really cool guest, and this one I've known the name for a long time, even since I was started in door-to-door in 2008. He is a living legend in door-to-door. His last year was 2005. And before we dive in, I'm giving some hints, but he's somebody that you're going to definitely want to go listen to the whole thing. But Mr. Jeremy Miner, who is the embodiment of philosophy, made him one of the wealthiest sales professionals on the planet. And during a 17-year sales career, he was recognized in the direct selling industry as the 45th highest earning producer out of more than 108 million salespeople sell anything worldwide. Jeremy's earnings as a commission-only sales rep were in the multi-seven figures every year. So he left door to door. I'll give him, and he'll tell the story. We were joking because he's like, I went in.
I did sign an NDA a long time ago, but it's been so long, maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah, anymore. I was gonna say, I was like, you're out of the limelight, bro. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, they're all sitting there like, hey, you know, you're gonna fail, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna go crush, and he did. Yeah. He went into, you know, building 7th level. Ranked one of the fastest growing sales training companies in the US 2021 and 2022 in Inc. magazine. And then 7th level was also ranked as one of the top 10 sales training companies in the world in 2022 and 2023 and by the prestigious Selling Power magazine. And so Jeremy's popular brand in sales training pioneers the unique use of behavioral science and human psychology within the sales process, reflective of his deep studies in the subject from Utah Valley University.
That's where I went to school.
Go Wolverines, baby. I'm an alumni. Got my associates though, so I don't even know if I can count myself. But anyway, not many times I go and interview former Utah Valley alumni.
I dropped out with 11 credits left, actually. I dropped out my last semester. I literally have 11 credits left.
I am literally,
my mom
I think
was
I'm
like,
19.
You need to go, like 5 years later, she's like, when are you going to go back to school and get your degree? I'm like, Mom, you like asked me to like loan you money. Like, why would I need to get a degree? Like, I'm in sales.
I love this.
You know, yeah.
I love this. And so anyway, he's got this new selling model. So anybody who wants to check out his new book, came out in May, I'd highly recommend it. It's the new model of selling to the unsellable generation. Go check it out on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or his website.
Yeah.
And welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks. You know, we flew in this morning here to Utah. You know, we're just down the road in Scottsdale, but it brings back a lot of memories for me because like I moved here after my mission for the LDS Church to go to school, and from like 2000 to almost 2006, this is where I was at, and this is where my sales journey began. Like my first job was door to door selling home security systems right here. Like this is the epicenter of where I started.
And your first year in door to door was what year?
I think it was 2000 or 2001.
Which is if we looked at the genealogy,
it was 2000, man.
Like it
was brand new then.
It's the new, like Todd Peterson age, like he was nothing. Like him and his you know, and now he sold his company for multi-billions of dollars. Like
crazy. Good for
it was
him.
Pioneering. And I remember the stories of the alarm dudes like Chance or Jeremy Pixton, like Keith Dyer. These guys were like, I
remember those names. Yeah.
Driving down the street. Yeah. And I was just yelling free alarm. Like they were inventing pitches. like you were in those days of like.
You know, you guys do same days, right?
Yeah.
Do you know where that came from?
You
want me to tell you the story?
Yeah.
This is like legitimately true. I don't know if anybody's ever claimed like, I'm the one that invented same days. So my first summer, it was about halfway through the summer. We're up in Boise, Idaho. This is all like door-to-door thing was kind of a new thing in the summer of 2000. I think they had done a summer program one summer before.
And maybe some pest control.
Yeah, I mean, pest control was there. That had been around for a while, but like door-to-door alarms, like a summer program, the first one they ever did was in 1999. Then I came in like summer 2000. So this is like brand new. And about halfway through, we would make sales, right? But then they would get installed like 3 days out, 5 days out, week out. And then we'd have like almost half that would cancel. And I literally remember like making a sale. It's like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And the lead technician, his name was Ron Bartholomew. And he's like, I don't know. No, it wasn't text. It was like Nextel phones. You know, the Nextel were like, you know, the walkie talkies. He's like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm in this, home. He's like, I could probably install it now. I don't have anything going on. I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea. And I'm like, and I don't remember what I said. I'm just like, yeah, we got a technician in the area. Like, we can actually install this now, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And I remember getting installed and I'm like, wait a minute. Why don't we just install them right after we sell them? This is literally where same day installs came from.
Awesome.
You're welcome. If anybody else
innovation at its finest, guys.
Like literally, like and Ron was just like, yeah, let's just start throwing them in. And even if like we'd make a sale at 9 o'clock at night, they'd at least put the panel on the wall and then come back and do everything else the next morning. And our cancellations went from like 50% down to like nothing, like 2%. And that's where same day installs in the alarm industry, from what I understand, came from.
No, I would claim that. Stake that claim, own it, because I've never heard anybody else.
Because when we went, when Jared Young and I, Jared took a bunch of like Pinnacle people over to Apex, they didn't even do same days. That was like foreign to them. We were like, no, we're not coming over here without same days. Because it was like a whole different ball game. We're like, it's different. Like if you install it the same day compared to install a day or 2 or 3 or 5 days later, different ball game. So we're like, yeah, we're going to do same days here too. So that's why we brought over technicians and stuff. But that's where the same day install came from.
That's awesome. So what were some of the what are some of the
I wish I had a
things
nickel for every install.
Same day. Yeah, you like
trademark
it.
I should have trademarked the same day install.
I love this. Yeah. So guys, if you're listening to this, it's fun because he's sold a lot of different things. Like I said in the bio, written books on sales trainings. So it's fun when two sales trainers get together. You know what I mean? Like, because everybody has a different philosophy, background. Mm-hmm. As you moved into sales, like what are some of the other things you have sold?
So, I did 5 summers in the alarms and then cashed out that last summer, 2005. I'm like out. And that's when they were like, they always tell you like, oh, you're never going to make as much money as you can in the summer. And it's okay. I get why they're saying that. And maybe they believe that. But I'm just like, no. I know how to sell. Like, I'll just go sell something else. I'll make a lot of money. Because I was just kind of tired of, I had 3 kids at the time. I was moving. I was married. I was moving back and forth to this city and then back to Utah. And it was just like, dude, like, I'm getting older. Like, I got kids. They're going to have to go to school in a couple of years. So I had to make a decision. So I got into B2B enterprise level sales, selling debt relief services, and, did fairly decent. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So B2B, what were some of the, like maybe the hardships you ran into? You're so used to same day selling alarms, see you, never talk to you again.
It was, I took a lot of what I did on door to door and applied it to B2B because a lot of it is cold calling. So, but it's on the phone, right? It's not on the door. So as you know, like when salespeople ask me like, hey, if they're 21, 22, like, hey, where should I start as a salesperson? I always get asked that question. You probably do like, what industry should I sell in, right? And I'm like, if you're a brand new salesperson and you're young, you want to start either door to door or start as an SDR for companies selling B2B cold calling. Because if you can get down door to door or cold calling, because you have to be really quick. You have to be really like quick on your feet with what you say and ask, because there's a lot going on in the prospect's mind. So if you get really quick and witty like that, like you can if you've mastered door to door and cold calling, when you get into like higher level stuff where it just slows down. So like when I went from door to door to enterprise, like after I cold called and then I have some booked appointments were like easy. It was like, I felt like I was in the Matrix. It was like these bullets coming at me, but I'm like, it's so slow, it's like, it's so easy, right? To talk to these people because, you're in person with them in a company, so it's just a different ball game. But the door to door stuff really prepared me because you have to think quick on your feet because nobody stays on script. It's like every prospect opens the door. They don't say all the same thing or how they say it or how it comes across. Is it aggressive? Is it timid? Like there's so many different things. You have to like read body language and tonality that when you get into high level sales, like if you already understand that, I think it's pretty easy. Yeah.
So it leads me down this thread. There's 3 threads.
Yeah.
Watch. First one is your book is like about an unsellable generation, but I want to back up a little bit. You did door to door back in 2000s to 2005.
Yeah.
Today they say the salesmen are getting softer, meaning they don't have the same work ethic. They don't have the same, so it's like, let's talk not customer, but let's talk. Do you feel like salespeople are getting weaker, softer, not as tenacious as maybe they were back in the day? Or do you think that's a myth?
I mean, I don't have any data on this, but it just depends. We have really young, like our top salesperson in our company is 19. He made over 800 grand in commissions last year. He's 19, but he's tenacious. He's always learning. He's like a sponge. But I've seen other salespeople they don't really, they're more interested in like hanging out and having fun and Netflix. Now, were there people like that, back in the day when I was there? I'm assuming, right? There was people that didn't make it, but is this generation softer than another? I don't know. What do you think?
I
really don't know. I don't have an opinion.
I don't think it is. And this is where I think a lot of people are struggling because you take like a roofer, for example, and they're like, they don't make them like they used to. And I'm like, I know a lot of 19-year-old kids that make $500,000.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
What are you talking about? And they're like, well, how do I find those guys? And so that leads me to the second question. Being in sales training, I'm sure you get asked this a lot. Like, can a salesman be taught, or is salesmanship something you're born with?
Oh, this is one of the biggest myths out there. So there is no scientific data that shows your DNA strands like you're a born salesperson. Because I asked this question.
That's what I'm getting. I'm curious your response.
Yeah,
to
when
this.
people are like, "Oh, he's a natural born closer," I'm like, that sounds good, but what does that mean? Like, what data shows that? Oh, their DNA, because they have this blood type, they're natural. Like, there's nothing. Like I was saying in a crowd, I'm like, raise your hand if you were born with advanced questioning skills. Everybody's like, no, nobody. Raise your hand if you were born with advanced tonality skills. Nobody raised it. And raise your hand if you were born with advanced objection handling and prevention skills. Nobody raised their hand. They're like, oh, so what you're telling me is that selling is an acquired skill, something you learned, because no one is born with any of those things I just said.
Wait, do you want to hear something crazy though?
Yeah, I got to
totally debunk this.
Yeah.
This dude at the sales summit, we host these cool sales events. He comes up to me, he's like, are you related to Grant Taggart? And I was like, I don't know.
Grant Taggart, yeah.
And he was the #1 insurance guy. He had 20,000 bond salesmen working for him.
Oh, wow.
And there's a big
when was this?
Sysmonium. He died in like 1975.
Wow. So he was selling more in the 30s and
40s. 30s,
probably.
40s, like
30s,
OG.
40s. Yeah.
And he was like a legend. They made
this
in Utah Valley, they made the Smithsonian about him. Like there's books. And so he comes up to me, he's like, my mom was the only employee he had.
Okay.
And she has these books still that were written to him by the OG sales trainer. And literally it was like signed to him like 1961.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I look him up. Yeah. It's my great uncle.
No kidding.
And I'm like, oh shit, it like runs in my DNA.
So he learned how to sell?
Yeah. I was like, he must have learned. I was like, well, maybe there's some maybe. I was like, dang, like I got this in my blood.
Here's where I think it comes from. I think that people believe that if you're really extroverted and you like to talk a lot, that you're great at sales. But there's no data that actually shows that. I would say, in fact, the data actually shows that if you're kind of in the middle between an extrovert and an introvert, you actually are better at sales because you can take on different personalities.
Yes.
That's actually, it's called an ambivert or whatever ambivert or something like that. There's different, because typically with people that are extremely extroverted, we have to train them like how to slow down. Like they just talk too much. They don't listen enough. They don't ask enough questions. They just literally talk like they're just plowing through something. And they personality sell. So they're up one week, down the next week, because it's all like based on their emotions, right? So, and that's hard to duplicate. So, I think that's where it comes from, that myth. Oh, he's a really good talker, so he must be a born salesperson. But I would say that, back in the day, even when I was selling door to door, the guys that would just show up, we always say the show up and throw up guys. They were always the guys talking. Whereas like if I knocked on your door, like they'd leave and like, man, this is the greatest conversation I ever had. And I'd said like, I talked like 5% of the time, and they thought I was their best friend, but it was, I knew how to learn how to disarm them and open them up. And, and all of a sudden we were best friends because they were doing all the talking, so.
So that leads me to the next question, which is a generation of buyers with the digital world.
Yeah.
there was no like Facebook ads as much when you were knocking.
No,
Where today
there's no
have,
face. I don't think Facebook existed in my last summer in 2005.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, you have a different type of marketing hitting people. You have different AI now automating follow-up and doing email drip campaigns through ClickFunnels.
Yeah.
How do you think the buyer has maybe shifted, even in B2B, B2C?
I just think they're far more skeptical than they've ever been before. So I think that's because they're constantly being sold to all the time, even more than 20 years ago, right? Because if you think about it, like I was talking with Chris on his show before I came up here, like when you wake up in the morning, besides going to the bathroom, what's the first thing you do?
Check your Instagram.
You get on the phone and you start seeing ads
or your
on your social media trying to sell you something, right? You get on IG or
you have 20 new
Facebook.
emails.
Yeah, you see somebody trying to say something or emails. So you walk into your kitchen, you turn on the TV and you see commercials trying to sell you something. You get in the car to go to work, radio ads trying to sell you something. You look to the sides, there's billboards trying to sell you something. You get back on social media and then, your aunt is pitching her newest MLM she's in. Yeah. So you're constantly being sold to all the time. And that wasn't the case 20 years ago. It really wasn't, right? So I believe they're far more skeptical. I think you got to get far better at selling than even you had to do 20 years ago. So I think because of that, human beings have built up defensive mechanisms in their mind, their brain. So once they feel like you're trying to sell them something, they instantly like shut off emotionally and they stay surface level because they know what you're trying to do. And that's why, I'm not interested. Oh, solar, not interested. Oh, alarms, we already talked with somebody about that. They don't even hear what you say, but it's how you're saying it and how you sound like everybody else that's ever knocked on the door that triggers that defensive mechanism and just, sales resistance. And like it's fight or flight mode and it's over,
So the honorable profession of sales, one of the missions at D2D is to up-level, bring honor and integrity. I got off the phone earlier today with a documentary company that we're working on, some cool stuff. And, and there's this perception of, I don't want to get sold, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, this trust level is low. What are some ways that maybe a sales rep that feels a little, almost like discouraged, they feel a little bit of, nobody wants me. I'm not liked. How do you overcome that? Not just mentally, but also now penetrating to a customer of like,
well, it's a societal problem. I love your mission. We got to work more together. Our mission at 7th Level is to change the way sales is perceived in society, right? Because if you look at salespeople, how does in general, how does the world view salespeople? Lower status, right? Like doctor, higher status. The doctor, you walk in the office like, hey, take your pants off. You're like, okay, you're taking your pants off, right? Because you just view them automatically.
He's a doctor.
He's a doctor. Higher. I got to take my clothes off. Okay, I'm just going to do it. Like, doesn't make any sense, right? They got a degree on the wall, and you walk in. They're like, "Hey, take your clothes off," and you're like, "Yes, I will." It's like what? Yeah. Higher status, right? So, and that's the reason why that is because of the way salespeople have been taught to communicate and sell, like hardcore, pushy, high pressure. That doesn't mean you're like timid and weak. Like you're not going to make any sales that way either. But you have to learn how to come across like an expert, an authority figure with the questions you ask that get them to internalize what you're asking them, or they view you differently. How you use your tone that gets them to, let their guard down and emotionally open up to you. And so with salespeople, like the reason why we're viewed at a lower status is actually not like consumers' fault. I would say it's the way salespeople have always been trained to sell, right? Back in the day, manipulating, high pressure, push them into do it, that's where buyer's remorse came from. That's where you have if they buy something, they have 3 or 5 days to rescind it. Like all those laws were put in place to protect consumers from really bad salespeople. When I say bad salespeople, they just bad techniques. That's what I mean, right? Because the way I look at it is like, if nothing's sold, there's no economy. If there's no economy, there's no society. Like sales has been around since before the world was even here. Like literally selling, persuasion, influence. I was talking with Chris about this. Like if you read any type of religious text, like the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, Doctrine and Covenants, LDS and stuff, it talks about the war in heaven. The war in heaven. There was a war in heaven, and Satan and his angels fell to earth and all that stuff. But has anybody ever thought about, well, how was the war fought? Was it fought with guns? Was it fought with tanks? Was it fought with bullets or swords? No, it was a war of words. It was a war of persuasion. It was a war of influence,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if you really think about it, that's what it was. That's why we're here. You were influenced to be here. So in my mind, like persuasion, sales, and influence has a much deeper spiritual meaning than just selling something to make money. I look at the prospect, do they have problems and or emotional needs? Yes. Can I solve those? Yes. So it's a mutual interest for us to do something together. But if I have really bad sales skills and the prospect doesn't buy, I'm hurting that prospect because I'm not solving their problems. They're staying in the status quo and nothing ever changes, right? And that's my responsibility just because I haven't learned the right techniques to be able to effectively sell.
100%.
Yeah.
And literally, I'm talking like there's this big producing company has reached out a few times now. And I finally am like, all right, let's do the story, right?
Yeah.
And they said, well, what's the story? And I said, that very thing. I said, look, the issue is, a stereotype is a stereotype for a reason. Like, you don't get a name for nothing.
Yeah.
And I said, the issue though is if people nobody gets mad. Like, for example, I bought a baby or a romper thing for my wife and it was like $98. And then on a Facebook ad.
Yeah.
And then Temu comes out. I see the exact same thing on Temu. I was like, wait a minute, isn't that what I just bought yesterday?
Yeah, right.
So I canceled the order and got it for $6. And I was like, should I feel like they manipulated me? Should I feel like they, is that bad? Am I like, you shady bastards? Like, you know what I mean? I'm not or, and I look, I'm like, well, somebody's transacting and somebody's creating value and somebody's spending money on this. And I was like, and then, you look at AI and it's like, okay, they did this ad and this email drip to me. And then I bought this thing.
Yeah.
Am I like, that got sold. And I think the fear of somebody being just taken advantage of, like you said, it's just that 3-day right. That's that high pressure tactic.
Yeah.
But I look at like when I sold, I'm like, I hope that I could have somebody call me back in 6 months and be like, dude, love it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's just the part of like making it feel.
It's just how you view selling. Like if you view selling as adversarial, you against a prospect trying to win them over, manipulate them to make money, you will feel that because as a human being, I don't believe God wired us to be shady like that. But if you view selling as collaborative, you working with the prospect to help them find and solve their problems and get them where they want to be, then you feel really good about selling.
And this is, I think, the destruction mentality a sales rep gets and creates the lack of longevity in this industry.
Yeah.
It's like, I just don't like waking up in the morning because maybe their manager, the owner is like preaching this like, go, dominate the customer, like get every sale you can.
Yeah,
and
it
it's
makes
like,
you icky.
Yeah, you're like,
because the owner wouldn't want a salesperson to do that to him if he was being sold a car or like a boat or a life insurance policy, would he?
No.
Exactly. So why would you do it on another prospect? It doesn't make any sense.
So shifting gears a little bit, love this. Let's get into like the tactical and why I appreciate Jeremy is there's actual substance.
Right.
How many sales trainers are out there that have no substance?
I used to hate that, man. Like seriously, like when we were in door to door, we used to make fun of those people because they'd bring them in and like 2 hours later, like they're like talking about goal setting and you got to be motivated. You got to have thick skin. And we're just like, well, we already know that. Like,
we're door to door guys. We
want to know what to say. We want to know what to ask. We want to know how to prevent that objection from happening. And it just always pissed me off because I'm just like, these guys just teach theory and goal setting. Like, we already know that, dude. Like, we want to know what to say and ask so we can sell more. Like tactical training, 100%.
Yeah. And there are very few that I would say give some real tactical stuff. Yeah. And, I think that is a frustration that I see in our world. But let's get into the tactical stuff because you're listening to this podcast. You're like, give me some meat, some potatoes. Yeah. Again, go get his book, guys, The New Model Selling. He's got some really cool concepts. But one of the tactical things I've learned from you and I've really appreciated is your question base. Obviously in door-to-door, on a door pitch, it's not going to be as applicable like right away, right? And I'm going to put some context.
It's like ask a question, then talk a little bit. Then you got to like mix in a little bit to keep them engaged. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think where some people miss the context of sales training. They're like, are we selling a life insurance policy? Are we selling door-to-door?
Yeah, it depends on if you're doing an inbound lead compared to door-to-door compared to cold calling. There's tweaks you have to make for sure.
So we're going to go into the home where I think it does become a lot more applicable in all cases is really that discovery. And I find a huge pitfall in salespeople is they fail to really identify problems and they fail to solve those problems. So like, How do you build urgency and how do you build value in a home through questions?
Well, it's questions and how you use your tonality, because you can ask the greatest questions in the world, but if your tone is like, I'll give you an example. Like I would say there's 5 types of tones you have to master. You've got a curious tone, because I always say your tone is how the prospect interprets the intention behind everything you say and ask. Is how you use your tone, right? So you got a curious tone, you've got a confused tone, like, hold on, stress? Like I'm confused, right? In different contexts. And I'll even show you like how I used to do how do I knock on the door?
This on doors all the time. What do you mean? Nobody's ever told me no. Like I had that mentality like, wait,
I don't understand.
I don't know what to do now.
You mean like the salespeople out here? Like, do you want me to tell them to go with, those sales guys are really cool, but they would never let me be one of those guys. And then I go like back in.
Yes.
So like I'm confused, right? So confusion.
I call it intentional stupidity.
Yeah.
And people like, I never knew how to call it. Confused is a better word.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just play intentionally stupid. And some people are like, how do you do that? I'm like, I always
call it the confused old man.
That's a better term, much better term for it.
So we got the confused tone. We've got the challenging tone, which is later on in the conversation. We've got a concerned tone, a tone that shows empathy. And then we have a playful tone, right? So depending on what part of the sales conversation you're in would typically depend on what type of tonality you would use. So if I'm knocking on the door, what I found out very quickly in door-to-door sales, I learned it the hard way, because like nobody at the company I'd started for was really teaching us. And they're like, here's a script, here's a book by this sales trainer, read it, good luck. That was really it. That was the training. And so I get out there and I was like, I knock on the door. Hey, are you the homeowner here? Oh, yeah. Hey, how are you doing today? I'm good. The reason why we're out here is blah, 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 blah. I'm like, not interested. And I was just like, okay, that doesn't work. After I knocked at like a bunch of doors and everybody, but I started to realize that everybody was saying that. So like if you sell pest control, my name is, the reason why we're out here with, I'm the route manager. We're out here with solar, they have solar now. Back in the day, it was like HVAC as well. And lawn care services, energy. So they're all like, hi, my name is, the reason why we're out here. So literally the prospect is not even hearing what you're saying. It's a defensive mechanism where they're like, oh, salesperson, trying to sell me something, right? And so it's kind of interesting, because my first summer, I think you guys all wear like, they all wear shorts now and like shirts and stuff, but that wasn't the case like summer of 2000 when I first started, because they're like, you need to dress up. Like that's what we were told. It wasn't until the next summer till we started like wearing shorts and not looking like salespeople. But the first summer we were like in pants, nice collared shirts, try to look nice, like a salesperson. And I quickly realized like, okay, you probably don't want to look like a salesperson, because they're coming to the door and like, oh, salesperson, you're instantly triggering resistance.
Yeah.
So what I did after that first summer is went and got like construction vests. I get like a neon green one and I had an orange one. I just kind of rotate depending on, neon green this week, man. I'm going to have 25 installs, or whatever. I got a tape measure. I got the old man, like white New Balance shoes, the old guy shoes, the grandpa shoes.
Yes.
I was wearing those.
They're back, dude. They're back in style.
Dude, I was wearing those when I was 21, 22, man. Because awesome. You got to be comfy. And just khaki shorts. I'd put my license in my pocket, because I'm like, your license right here. You're just like saying, I'm a salesperson knocking on your door. So I'd put the license in my pocket. If they asked, I'd pull it out. But I'm like, why would you wear the license out here? You look like a salesperson, right? And so I'd knock on the door. And I don't know how you guys do alarms now, but back in the day, it was like you get the alarm system for free. You had to pay like a $99 activation fee or something, or
some
maybe
still do that.
$199, and then you paid like $50 or $60 a month for mine. It's like a 3 or 5 year deal, right? So I'm like, okay, so what am I doing? So I, started learning body language. So started angling my body to the side, so I wasn't like up in their grill. Be like 6 to 8 feet back, and I knocked on the door. I always had a pin. I always had this pin, like a magical wand, right? I always do it in my real estate. Like, why do you have a pin? I'm like, I think it's just from like door-to-door days. Like I went into B2B, like when I cold call and I'd have a pin. It just helps me like organize my thoughts. I don't know what it was. And I had the metal clipboards.
Yep.
So you'd put the contracts in there, and I had like a stack of papers on top, like a survey. So literally when they came to the door, they didn't know if I was a meter reader, they didn't know if I was a construction worker, they didn't know anything. So when they'd come to the door, I'd kind of time it, because I could see kind of the corner of the eye. Because I'd always be looking out at the yard with the sign, because you're going to put the sign in the yard, you get the system free. So I always like looking at the trees, Now, if I sold solar or roofing, now I'd probably be looking at the roof. If I sold pest control, I'd probably be looking at the ant mounds or the spider webs. Depending on what you sell, she would kind of look around. And so they come to the door and be like, yeah, are you guys the property owners here? And I'd lower my voice, like a concerned, like confused tone. They're like, yeah, we're the proper owners. What's going on? They'd always walk out. Yeah, well, what's going on? Instantly pattern interrupt.
Yes.
And then I would kind of go into like, well, oh, my name's Jeremy, and I don't have much time. I've got to go to another appointment. So I'm always acting like I have to go.
Yes.
Because I don't want them to feel like, I never wanted them to feel like, oh, he's going to take my time, because that's another like, oh, I don't have much time. So I'd always be like, oh, and I apologize, I've only got 2 minutes. I've got to go to another appointment. And then I'd go through it. Dude, I can tell you, like in my 5 years, on two hands, how many doors like slammed in my face. Once I learned how to pattern interrupt, always would trigger curiosity.
Love that.
So I took that into B2B as well. I did it differently on the phone, but yeah,
that's awesome.
So you got to trigger curiosity.
Okay, so let's move into the home.
Yeah.
A lot of the objection you'd get would be like, well, obviously it's the same day, and a lot of our people want to close same day, and you know,
like for alarms or something?
like a pest or solar or roof. Like you're like, I don't want to have a bunch of go backs, right?
Yeah.
So what are some ways that you have found to help avoid saying, like, you know, leave me your card, I'll call you back when I'm ready?
That's just lousy, but it's a downstream issue. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're getting a lot of that, like you probably didn't get hardly any of that compared to like the average rep, right? You didn't get a lot of people like, hey, leave me your card, you come back later, compared to the average Joe. And the reason why is because you were probably much better at building a gap from where that prospect is compared to where they now see they could be that they didn't understand they had before you knocked on the door. Because if somebody says, hey, you know, just leave me your card and come back later, they don't mean I want you to come back later. They're just trying to get rid of you. And they're trying to get rid of you because you didn't create any gap for them. They don't feel like they have much of a problem. So what I always say to anybody is like, in any industry, what are the two biggest emotional drivers that cause a human being to want to change? Pain and the fear of future pain. So if I can't help the prospect relive their pain of their situation and then have a fear of continued pain or future pain, they feel no need to change. And when they feel no need to change, that's why you get smokescreen objections and they don't buy. Because I started getting into sales. I'm like, well, how do I prevent that objection from happening?
Yeah.
How do I prevent them from saying, I want to think it over? How do I prevent them from saying, I need to check my finances? Because everybody knows their finances. So I was more interested in like objection prevention than objection handling. Because like when I got an objection, I'm like, oh, what did I do wrong? Like instantly when they said something, like I'd be like, oh, what did I do wrong?
And once you started doing it enough, you probably started to realize you're like, I knew I missed my thing. You're like, dang it, I forgot to say the one thing. Like,
yeah, exactly. Or something, man. It's like, you know, even though I want to think it over, and that's a common objection in any industry, right? Every industry gets, I want to think it over, or do more research, or keep looking around, or whatever. But I'm like, nobody goes and thinks it over. Every time you tell a salesperson you want to think it over, you're just trying to be nice to make them not want to hear no. But it's not like you're sitting there for 2 or 3 weeks, like I'm thinking it over, like I'm writing it out on an Excel spreadsheet, the positive and negatives. Like nobody does that. So the problem is like think it over is not even an objection. The objection is what they don't want to tell you. See, they don't want to tell you the objection, so they're going to say, I want to think it over. I need to keep looking around, right? So what do? I've got to get them to let their guard down to tell me what the real concern is. What most salespeople do in any industry to the I want to think it over objection is they try to logically trap them, which will work here and there. And that's why they keep doing it, because they get like a dopamine rush when it actually works 1 out of 20 times. And they'll be like, well, what do you need to think about? You said you wanted X, Y, Z. And most of the time the prospect gets kind of defensive though. They're like, well, you know, and they'll get defensive. I want to do the exact opposite. So I'm just going to agree. I'm like, oh yeah, that's not a problem. What's your time frame on getting back to me in the next day or two to see if I'll be available for you? So see, I want them to feel like I'm about to leave, right? Like, so if I was in the doors, I want them to feel like I was about to leave the home. Yes. When I sold B2B, I wanted them to feel like I was about to leave the office. Or like if I sold on Zoom now, I wanted them to feel like I'm about to get off Zoom or get off the phone. So I just agree because I wanted them to get their guard down first.
Yes. Yeah,
that's not a problem. What's your time frame on getting back to me in the next day or two to see if I'll be available for you? Oh, you know, I could randomly, I'll call you maybe next week. Don't accept that because that's never going to happen. And so then I'd be like, well, I'd book an appointment and then be like, hey, now, before I leave, like, what was it that you were, I guess, wanting to go over in your mind? That way I know what questions you'll have when we talk on Tuesday. And most of the time they'll be like, well, it's just a big decision. And, I want to talk with my uncle because he used to have an alarm. I'm like, okay, that's the concern. Or they're like, well, it's just a big decision and, Bob might lose his job. Now I know it's a money objection. And now I'm there and I help him overcome the objection and I just would close the deal there. But I had to get them to let their guard down first to be open to tell me because they thought I was leaving.
Well, I think here's something I'm going to point out. If you're listening to this, a salesman that's good thinks this way though.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like I'm still closing the effing deal. Like in their head, they're still like, I'm still not walking out of this. I'm not walking out of this home.
You're talking like, I don't think I ever came back to close a door-to-door deal because it's just a one.
You just didn't want to go back. Yeah.
You just want to come back. It wasn't worth it. Now there were some B2B deals that, I came back, but that's a longer sales cycle, but yeah, keep going.
But I think that's the point of like, I'm here to close.
Yeah.
Even though I'm like kind of allowing the line to go out a little bit, like here, fish, go swim for a minute.
I got to let them
let their guard down. And I think that's the piece where it's that last little pressure. The very end is the difference between a lot of good closers and okay closers.
Yeah, because if they feel pressure from you, just the wall goes up. And it's so much harder to sell when there's a wall of resistance. I'm like, how do I make sure the wall never comes up? I was always about like, how do I prevent sales resistance? So if I ever got any type of pushback, I'm like, what did I not say? Like my tone must have been off when I asked that question. I could see that they got a little defensive. Like they raise their hand like, and I could read it in tone like, oh man, the way my tone sounded there, that just triggers something in their brain. Like I was always thinking that. So I was always tweaking, like trying to like perfection. Because literally like if I got an objection, I'm like, oh, what did I do wrong?
Missed something.
I missed something. It was very, like I didn't get a lot of objections. Guys would go out and knock with me on doors because I was a manager and a regional manager too. And they're like, dude, you always get all the laydowns. And I'm like, no, I just installed 6 today. None of those were laydowns. You would have made none of those.
I made it feel like a
laydown because I got them to let their guard down and open up emotionally to me. There was no laydowns in there at all.
And I think this is where the good sales reps recognize that, where the crappy sales reps, they don't recognize that.
That there's skill involved.
You are way more in control than you think.
Yeah.
I think the mindset of an average sales guy is I'll talk to enough people to where I'll find somebody interested.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is so low of thinking. The good guys are not thinking like, I'm going to hope somebody's interested today.
To me, like when I sold alarms, I was like, they just don't know they're interested yet because they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what their real problems are. They don't understand that, there could be carbon monoxide poisoning and like their whole family dies tomorrow. Like they don't understand that, people die in fires. They don't really think about it until it happens. They don't understand that intruders break in and like people get hurt. Like this happens all the time until it happens. It's like a life insurance policy. Like nobody thinks they're going to die, right? But everybody does. So it's the same concept. Like I'm helping them see a fear of future pain and what the consequences are if they don't do anything about it now. And I feel like if I didn't make that sale, I feel like personally responsible for that because if something happens and I didn't make that sale, whose responsibility was that? It was really mine because I was just bad at sales, had bad skills, couldn't help the prospect open up. That's my fault.
And when I sold alarms, like this is where we can share this same passion. Is everybody going to have a fire or break in? No. Yeah. But it's that one that it's like, I don't know. I'm not God. I can't pick which one has the break in. I don't have. So it's my duty. It's like my mission to help.
100%.
And I think a passionate salesperson where people are like, damn, this guy's like, he's drinking this Kool-Aid. I'm a buy. Like, I think too many people go into sales with a lack of this passion, a lack of conviction. Yeah. And I watch salespeople kind of almost sound unenthusiastic. And I'm like, why? Like, would you buy from you? Like, would you?
Yeah.
Are you not just convinced? And I think there's an element of watching.
I think people don't understand what you mean by real enthusiasm, though. Because in my mind, I'm assuming you don't be like, hey, I'm so excited.
No, not Billy Mays.
Enthusiasm is like you come across like you're an expert, like you're an authority figure. Just like we're talking right now, we're viewed, as an expert with what we do. That's like when I knocked on your door, I was like, I'm so excited to be here. Because that was just going to trigger them like, oh, salesperson, right? But I'm not going to be timid. I'm going to be like, oh, well, let me know if you're interested in buying. Interested. I never said the word interested. I'm like, I always looked at sales as this way. I'm not the one that has the problems. The prospect does. So why am I qualifying to them? Why am I trying to beg them to buy when I'm the one that doesn't have the problems? Now I have the solution to solve their problems. So I'm going to learn techniques to get them to qualify to me. I'm going to learn how to get them to do all the work. I'm going to learn how to get them to sell themselves. I'm going to learn how to get them to overcome their own concerns. And I'm going to learn how to get them to pull me in rather than me pushing, pressuring, chasing, following up. Because once again, I'm not the one that has the problems. They do. And when you start to view selling differently, you just come across differently.
100%.
You know?
100%.
Yeah.
So we're kind of almost out of time. And I want to like rapid fire a couple more just questions. Guys, again, so much value out of this. So first off, thanks for coming.
I love the door-to-door industry.
Yeah,
we train a lot of reps and companies in roofing and solar now and pest control, and it's HVAC and even rainbow vacuum cleaners, which I bought one from some of our clients. I'm like, dude, that is freaking amazing. My daughter has allergies and like she doesn't have allergies now freaking from the vacuum cleaner. I'm like, who would have thought? It's freaking amazing.
It's so cool.
Yeah. So
favorite book, sales book, obviously you have yours, but like what was the sales book that you felt like maybe inspired you the most?
One of the first books I ever read was The Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy. I think for the time, 2000, 2001, that was a really good book for me because it was like my first exposure to what even selling was. If I had to say now, I think Daniel Pink has a really good book called Sell as Human. It's not as much tactical, but you start to understand how consumers' buying behaviors have changed because of the internet and social media and all this marketing going on. So it makes you view selling a lot differently. It's a really good book. The co-author of this book, Jerry Acuff, has a great book on something about listening. Listen to what the prospect means, not just what they say. It's a really, really good book about listening and like clarifying questions and probing questions. That's a really good book. There's so many good books. I'm probably going to piss off a lot of my friends. Those would be some of the books. There's some books. You didn't mention my book, There's some good ones out there. But here's the problem with books. Like everybody's like, hey, I bought your book. I'm like, well, you don't expect to like double your sales from a book, do you? And like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, after you read that book, the way your brain works is you're going to retain about 2.7 to 2.9% of what you read within 30 days. And most books, let me give you an example of this. So give me an example. Like, what's one of your favorite songs? Like you could sing the whole thing verbatim. If I said, sing the song, you'd be like, well, I could sing it.
How about Don't Stop Believing?
Yeah, so you know all the words, right? Now, what's your favorite book? Just any book.
I see where you're going.
Just any book.
Awareness.
Okay, awareness. So on one page of your favorite book, there's about as many words as in your favorite song. Yet, can you recite word for word one page of that book?
No.
You know why? Because music, you start to retain it from the melody and the tonality causes your brain to retain it. Whereas a book is words and you don't have any melody and you have no tonality. So your brain cannot remember it. There you go. Books will never, it's a good introduction, but you need like sales training courses, like videos that show you need role-playing partners that know what they're doing. Like if you want to master sales, you're not going to master it by reading books.
Why do you think people maybe have resistance? Like I watch, because obviously we've sold tens of thousands of people sales courses. And you've seen that companies over and over and over again. Yeah. My question is, when you call a prospect a company or a rep that's like, oh, I'm already good, or our company has training, or like, why do you think there's a buyer's resistance to sales courses?
I think people just don't know what they don't know. It's interesting because some people will, every once in a while, like I'll look at my IG or something, there'll be some, I could comment, I'll see, and they'll be like, oh, well, if you were, he's scamming people by selling sales training courses. And I'm like, sales training companies training salespeople how to make more sales is a scam? I don't understand. Like it's sales training to help you sell more of your thing, but it's somehow a scam. Like I don't understand. Like we're a sales training company. Typically companies and people come to us so they can sell more. Nobody ever comes to us so they can sell less, So we just have a unique way to do it. Like because a lot of salespeople, like on our outbound team, they'll call like somebody we have all these SLO offers, like NPQ Black Book of Questions, first version, second version, objection handling book. We have like 5 or 6 different versions. They're always around. We're marketing all the time. And a lot of times, one of our SDRs will be like, yeah, Yash, this is Yash on Jeremy Miner's team. You asked us to call you. You just got the book, NPQ Black Book of Questions to, kind of learn techniques maybe to sell more, right? And they're always like, well, yeah, I'm always looking to sharpen my sword. Okay, so you want to sell more. They always say like, oh, I'm just, trying to sharpen my sword. It's like they're trying to protect themselves. I'm like, so we just come up with like, well, typically, salespeople typically come to us because they want to sell more. They usually never come to us to want to sell less, for sure. And that always kind of makes them laugh a little bit. So it's about being playful with them and opening them up. And a lot of times,
Yeah, but that's the thing. Yeah. They're like, they don't want to admit, like, I want to watch your, it's like,
especially with males, not necessarily females. Females are more open, but males, we're like, oh, I'm a salesperson. Everybody thinks they're the best salesperson, and I just love people because it's like John Madden said in the NFL. He's like, no, you are what your record says you are. So when salespeople are like, oh, I'm the best salesperson, I can sell anything. I'm like, well, how much is your commission check? Because your commission check says who you are, nothing more, nothing less. Like, you're not the greatest salesperson in the world if your commission checks are this big. I'm sorry, you've got some things to learn. So I always say, low six-figure salespeople have huge egos. It's always those guys, because you call a guy that's already making $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year in commissions, he's always wanting to learn. That's why he's making more.
They're the best customers.
That's why
I would say the makeup of our customers are the dudes that have not even learned they suck yet. Yeah. Meaning like they're so new.
Yeah.
And then the guy's making $500,000 plus.
Yeah, because they know to get to that level, I got to keep learning. I got to keep growing. Like even, dude, I was in my B2B heydays. Like the year before, I made close to $3 million in 1 year in commissions. I'm still going through courses every day because I'm like, I got to get better. Like I lost that deal. I could have made 3.5. I'm like always like trying to get better all the time. And so I always say that, usually salespeople in that 100K to like maybe 150, 180.
Oh, so true. It's like so validating to hear this from you though right now.
True.
I'm so grateful I'm not the only one thinking this, because I've never openly talked about this. So if you're listening to this and you're a guy making $100,000, I just check in.
Yeah, it's just like, because I'm always like, man, your ego's the thing that holds you back. Because I remember like even when I got to a certain level, there's about a year or so, like I got this mastered. I can't learn anything else. And then I was like, I started going backwards. I'm like, dude, this is just, no, I cannot have any ego. I am still trying to master sales right now with our sales training company the size it is. Like I am still improving every day. I'm still listening to, like my friend Mark Bowden, who's a body language expert. I'm like taking his courses. Like I'm taking tonality training. Like I'm always improving our courses to make our clients' results even better than they were the year before. So like if I'm still learning to master sales and persuasion,
me too.
And Sam's still learning, you might still have some way to go, right? So,
1,000%.
Because if you don't, you're just going to stay at your same income.
I agree. And this is not some sales pitch to you. I genuinely was curious.
The truth, man.
It's and I see it and I see shade thrown at guys like Jeremy or myself, and I'm like, we're just trying to help you sell more. Like I don't.
Yeah, like hey, we're on the same team. Yeah, like you're a salesperson, we're a sales training company. Like we train salespeople out of somewhere. So, if you want to sell more, we can help you. You don't have to sell more.
Yeah,
you can always stay where you're at. It has no impact on me. Like I'm not going to go, like my cars are the same. Like I'm not going to go buy a different car because you buy one of my courses. Like I already, I've had good cars for a long time because I learned how to sell. So like it has no impact on me if you don't acquire those skills. Like our clients in your industry that are out selling you, they've acquired those skills. But that's why I love salespeople that are already crushing it because they know.
Yeah.
And business owners too. They're already crushing it. Like, hey, to get to this level, like, like I'm good friends with a guy named, do you know Tommy Mello?
Mm-hmm.
Good dude. So CEO of A1 Garages and sold half his company for $200 some million or whatever. And, he's coming to us. He's like, hey man, like we're crushing it, but I know there's like another level. Like, let's do something together. Like we need to bring you guys in to, because home improvement's a huge industry for us, home services, one of the top probably 10. And so, we're going to come in there and have his salespeople go through the courses and stuff. But I love a guy like that because he's like, man, I sold it for this, but now I want to buy all these other companies up and I want to roll it up and sell it for this. And he's like, for me to get here, I got to get better. Like I got to get our reps better than they are today. And that's why I love people like that, because they realize there's levels to the ball game we call sales. I always say that there are levels to this ball game we call sales. You simply decide which level you want to play the ball game at.
Yeah.
Nothing more, nothing less. You want to stay at the bottom level, well, don't learn anything. You want to start getting up to the high levels, like these people you want to make money, you got to pay at a higher level. That means you got to develop a higher skill level. Mm-hmm. And I would say the number one question that salespeople probably ask me at any event is this: how do I get more confidence in sales? How do I become more confident? I'm like, it's a weird question for me because I'm like, what do you mean? How do you get more confidence? You got to have a higher skill level. Like, how can you have more confidence with a low skill level? Because if you're not selling that much, because your skill level's here, where's your confidence level going to go? You get all jacked up and pumped up every morning by your favorite song or, reading motivational book. And that's all great. I love motivation. But when the prospect opens the door and it says hello, if you don't know what to say or ask, it's going to cause them to open up. Your confidence level by the end of the day is back down to where your skill level is. Yeah. So you want to raise your confidence level, you got to raise your skill level. That's
100%.
And that's true in anything, man.
It's knowledge. It's like, why did the kings burn the books back in the day? They didn't want anybody to know shit. Yeah. Like, why did they? It's like the people with wisdom tend to have power, and they have this different confidence. And it's like
they have higher status. It's a funny thing to me because I look at all professions. I'm like, what profession can you go ask somebody, hey, what do you do for a living? And they're like, oh, I'm a salesperson. And then you say, well, how many years did you go to sales and persuasion school? 0. Like, can you imagine like an engineer like, oh yeah, I'm going to figure out how to build the bridge after I get the job. Well, no, or a neurosurgeon. I'm going to figure out how to do the brain surgery like after I get hired. It doesn't make any sense, right? What profession you're not fully trained to know exactly what to do before you do the thing. Like, I don't know any, that's why sales has the highest attrition. That's why everybody leaves.
They get hired and then try to learn.
And then try to learn how to sell. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, can you imagine like somebody in the military? You're like, oh, you're, okay, yeah, we're just going to drop you off in Afghanistan. No boot camp, no formal training. Good luck.
Yeah, here's a gun.
Yeah, here's a gun.
Start shooting things.
Yeah, I'm just
shoot the dudes in that color.
There's no profession that you don't have to get educated on, like engineers, doctors, attorneys. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So like when salespeople come to us and like, hey, because our reps tell me the stories, like, yeah, we're going to get a job in 3 or 4 months and then I'm going to invest in the training. I'm like, well, what happens if you go into the job and you don't know how to sell? What is your boss going to do after 2 or 3 weeks? So typically people come to us because they want to learn how to sell before they get the job. So day number 1, they actually make sales, because then how's your boss going to view you then? Yeah, right. So it's just reframing their way of thinking,
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate you having on the just being on the show, man. This is good. And
I love you.
I'm glad doing it in person too. Like, I hate the Zoom webinar thing.
I don't do them anymore, man.
Yeah, I'm like, I barely. Yeah, I'm like, I won't do them.
Yeah, unless it's like a really huge one. Like, we always do. Our agent will book me on 2 or 3 podcasts before I fly into town, like the day before, for like a keynote or something. So I always do like 2 or 3 in-person podcasts before the next day keynote.
Super smart.
I'll be back in a couple of days, man. I'm going to see it SolarCon,
I'm speaking. Dude. We're sharing the stage.
What day do you speak?
On Friday afternoon. Right before
okay, I'm the last speaker on Friday.
Oh, well, see you there,
we're going to hang out, man.
Fun.
Back in
see
the
you in a couple of days.
I even looked on the thing because I'm like, they're like, oh, we have my staff's like, we have some booth there or something. I'm like, oh, wow, we have a booth, because we're bringing like 8 or 10 of our guys, and I think you're like maybe 5 or 6 booths down, so we gotta mingle,
we're booth buddies. Yeah,
we're booth buddies.
Okay, we'll see you guys. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Go subscribe and share this with some sales dude that probably needs this more than probably you were listening to it. So appreciate you guys. Much love.
If they want to learn about it, just have them follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, go follow Jeremy Miner.
Yeah, just follow me on my verified account. So yeah,
love that. Thanks, man.